me, Zara Janjua. Our guests today are Herald columnist Brian Beacom, former Scotland captain Gemma Fay, and author CJ Cook. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for being with us. Now, this week we're talking about the new man in charge of James Bond, Andy Murray's legacy ahead of Wimbledon, Donald Trump on the world stage, and a lot more. Let's have a listen to some of this week's big moments.
You're playing the legend slot. Do you feel like a legend?
Oh dear, I don't know. Yeah, I suppose I do. I just wish they wouldn't call it the tea time slot.
Like two kids in a schoolyard, you know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes, then it's easier to stop them.
Then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
The NHS is dying before our very eyes.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Right, I'm going to try this and it's not going to be easy.
All that and a lot more to come here on BBC Radio Scotland with me, Zara Janjua. And of course, you can join the conversation. I'm wanting to know, who do you think should be the next James Bond? Text me on 80295, standard network rate applies. Or of course, you can WhatsApp on 08085 92 95 00. But first, if you are not heading out this weekend, well, what are you going to be watching? Our panel have been dipping into 3 new TV releases to share their thoughts. Later on, we'll be exploring crime drama Countdown and a moving journey to India with broadcaster Amal Ranjan. But first, we've been watching thriller Smoke, starring Taron Egerton and Journey Smollett as arson investigator and cop duo teaming up to stop a deadly spate of fires in a very small town. Here's a clip.
Fire isn't just an element. Fire is an organism. Fire watches. Fire waits.
I've been told to have 2 serial arsonists working this area. No significant leads on either.
Why is she here again?
You're one man dealing with a fire plague. Accept the help. You need to get somebody quick before one of them kills again.
Serial arsonists tend to be powerless in their own lives. They want other people to know what that feels like.
Don't let him in your head.
That's not the kind of guy that gets in my head.
How you feeling lately? You seem a little off.
That was the trailer for Smoke, starring Taron Egerton on Apple TV+. But let's find out what my panel, Brian Beacom, Gemma Fay and CJ Cook, made of it. Brian, tell us a little bit about what's going on in Smoke.
Yeah, it stars Taron Egerton. You may remember him from, he played Elton in Rocket Man. He played Eddie the Eagle as well. He's a terrific actor. Now he's playing a firefighter called Dave Goodson. This is a firefighter who's been damaged because he becomes an arson investigator after suffering a terrifying brush with death in a blazing building. So he's almost dead. Now it's his task to try and find out who's causing these mysterious fires right throughout the city. What you've got in this sort of series is it's an incredibly slow burn. It's detailed. You get lots of character development. You get lots of intricacy along the way. You get an insight into his rather slightly complicated marriage and an even more complicated relationship with his new partner, who's been foisted upon him, a detective. So you've got an interesting chemistry going on there all the way, but at the same time what you've got is this darkness, this heavy smoke that is this arsonist, 2 arsonists actually going around the city, spreading chaos and devastation, which is quite terrifying. So on the one hand, you've got the contrast, you've got a lovely contrast between this deep psychological understanding of what fire can do to people, how it can burn, not literally, but sear into the soul. So you've got some clever, intricate writing, yet at the same time you've got the big drama moments that come from watching people go through a terrifying experience.
A CJ slow burn, Brian says there. But obviously Taron Egerton, as he's mentioned, great actor. We've seen him in some really iconic roles, and obviously Journey Smollett. They're the leads, arson investigator Dave and cop Michelle. do they portray themselves well, or as characters? Is it them that you sort of stick with it for?
The character depth and the acting really make this worthwhile.
Love it.
I thought it was great, and it is very stylized, but I found it, a really intelligent, compelling watch. So I would definitely recommend it.
Gemma, I mean, we hear a lot about serial killers, don't we? We've seen so many series that are focused on the psychology behind serial killers. Is this kind of adding a new layer?
Yeah, I think it
Arsonists,
does. I think it does. Like, I'm struggling to think of a show or series where you go into the in-depth psychology of arsonists as they're never seen in the same light as a serial killer, are they? The serial killers are seen to be someone that actively is in there taking a life, whereas with arsonists there's a standoff piece, isn't there?
There's a degree of separation.
There is a degree of separation, but it does look as arson as a crime it is this conduit for control, kind of rage, loneliness. There's a point in this episode where you see the arsonist, because it is revealed at some point, one of the arsonists in this first episode, stand back and take in the scene. And it's almost like this release. It's almost like at some point it seems like
they're getting a kick out of it.
It's not just that, they're conducting an orchestra. The way in which it's filmed and shot, and you see the sparks and you see them just relax into it. It is really interesting and slightly confusing to watch, and I think that's what's different about this, is they tap into the psychology not through words, but just through moments and emotions portrayed through actions, and I think that's different.
I think that's right. I think also it's about fire being seen to empower these weak individuals.
It's mesmerising though, fire, is it not?
Absolutely mesmerising, and it's showing the effect of what that kind of danger, that horrific danger, how it can be used to create absolute havoc and terror in people's souls. And I think you're absolutely right. I don't think it's been done before. I remember really enjoying Ron Howard film Backdraft, which really
that's taken us back, isn't it?
Looked into the psychology of the firefighter and how they managed to cope with that incessant, unrelenting attack that comes from dark smoke. And Ron Howard did it really well. But this goes to another psychological level, and that makes it sound a wee bit too pretentious, but it's not. It's just clever, and it offers more of an understanding into the arsonist than I think it's ever been offered before.
Well, do you know, CJ, one thing that has been said about this series is that it takes a little bit of time to get into, that you probably need to stick with the first couple of episodes. Do you think that's a reasonable expectation for audiences now?
I'd read somewhere that it was a slow burn. It took a while to get into, but I didn't feel bored. I felt like I was being drawn in, really, and I was interested to, have that time and space as a viewer to get to know the characters, to understand the lay of the land. I didn't feel bored at all. I thought it was absolutely well paced.
I just love the little bits of detail that came with it as well. This is Taron Egerton's character, Dave Goosen. He's a powerful firefighter. He's courageous. He's incredibly brave. But it's let slip early on that he's just about to have sex with his wife, but he needs to take a pill, or he should take a pill. What does that tell you about the character there? It just puts a big question mark and offers up an intrigue in what's going on in this man's physiology and his mind.
I think there's something to be said about a show or TV where you're not allowed to switch off in it. Like, you have to engage in this to pick up on the nuances of the characters, to understand that this is going to set you up for something bigger. And you talk about a slow burn, and should we be forced to have to wait for something? Well, there's nothing wrong with waiting for something. There's nothing wrong with engaging the audience in a way where they have to work for it a little bit. I think off air I compared it to, if anybody's done a CrossFit workout, there's often a bit called a buy-in at the beginning where you have to actually earn the right to do the workout. I think there's something in this where you as a consumer of this and an audience member, you have to pay attention. You have to think about this a bit, and we're not just going to give it to you. I think we're going to talk about something later on that just slaps it on you and just say you don't even have to pay attention here.
Will audiences want that instant gratification, or will they, I guess, switch off and switch on something else? It has just been released, so we'll find out a little bit more. Obviously, we're reviewing programmes throughout the show today, but we want to know what you're watching. Have we missed something this week that you think would make a great series? You can just get in touch and let us know. 80295. You can send us a text or a WhatsApp on 08085 92 95 00. And if you do have a burning desire to watch all episodes of Smoke, well, they're available now on Apple TV Plus.
Mornings across Scotland.
Are we taking online abuse seriously?
It can be pretty horrific.
Your calls on the biggest talking points of the day.
What should we be doing about it?
Whether it be drugs, alcohol, gambling.
How are you feeling this morning?
I felt safer during the Cold War.
And your stories.
Songwriters write about what they know. There's still a bit of Glasgow in there.
Oh, there's a lot of Glasgow. There's a lot of Glasgow.
What's a day off like in Pitlochry for Alan Cumming?
I've not actually had a day off. One day I'm going to climb that mountain.
Join the conversation.
Do we all want to have thick skins?
I don't think we should accept this.
Mornings, weekdays from 9 on BBC Radio Scotland and Sounds.
Is his mum, she hangs out with the stars. Chris is Chris's dad, he hangs out at the bar. Kieran is his brother, he is a record plugger. And Chris completes the family, he's a cheeky little chappy. The Chris Moyle Show.
Best Ray.
And Sounds.
There is lots of chat to come here on BBC Radio Scotland with me, Zara Janjua, including the new man in charge of James Bond and a difficult week in Westminster for the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. But first, I'm here with my guests, Brian Beacom, CJ Cook and Gemma Fay, and it's time to get your moments of the week. Kicking us off, CJ, you've had a bit of a road trip.
I did. I had a road trip around France, not the whole of France, a little bit of France.
La, very nice.
And it was wonderful. It was 40 degrees, mind. But I was really so excited to go to a place called Fontevraud Abbey, where you can find the tomb of Eleanor of Aquitaine, who was both the Queen of France and the Queen of England back in the 1200s. The 1100s, actually. Yeah, she was amazing. I could take up many hours just talking about how incredible this one was. She's well known in France. They actually had a 900 Years of Eleanor exhibition, but she led a rebellion against her husband, who was the King of England and of the Plantagenet dynasty, who's related to our current royal family. She was just absolutely marvellous.
Well, as far as research goes, I think that's a big tick, going all the way to France. Did you get to enjoy a bit of France while you were there?
I did. It was a week of croissants, wine and castles, but also research for my novel that I'm writing.
And has there been much out there about her so far?
About Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's been there's an impressive amount. She's not as well known here, even though she was one of our queens. She was Queen of England. And you know, when I talk about her, people are like, "Who is that? And what did she do?" But in France, different story. They know all about Eleanor.
Love that. And Brian, you've also had a road trip, but you stayed a little bit closer to home.
Stayed a bit closer to home. This is one of those ones. I think we've all been in a situation at one point that we're really close to someone at some point in our life, and then we lose touch with them. And I think, especially when you lose touch with someone, this is pre-internet days, then how can you make contact? I went through that experience just a few weeks ago. It was on my birthday, and I decided I needed to try once more to get in touch with an old friend from university called Julie Smith. Julie Smith is quite a common name, very, very difficult to find. And over the years, 20, 30 years past, I could never find Julie Smith. However, and I don't know why this is the case, but I typed in her name one more time and it was into Facebook Messenger, and up came a contact number, someone who knew Julie Smith. Cut a long story a little bit shorter, it turned out to be her niece. Julie got in touch with me, and I met Julie for the first time after 39 years when we first met in first year at university.
Wow.
So, but being a wee bit impetuous, we thought, well, let's meet up. So what did we do? We just didn't meet up for a coffee or a dinner, and we decided to go on a road trip. So we had a 4-day road trip together.
And it went well. Because it's a risk, isn't it? If you've not seen each other for 40 years.
It's a massive risk, because you don't know what the other person's
chemistry's going to be like.
You don't know what yet. did you have that much in common all that time ago? Will you still make each other laugh? What are you doing? Are you trying to look back at yourself? Are you trying to understand yourself through the opinion of the other person now? It's really holding up a mirror to yourself and to the original relationship to see if it can stand up.
Oh, what a brilliant story.
Incredibly, it did. And we went to Pitlochry Theatre, saw a fantastic production of Grease, then went up to Inverness and then down to a friend at in Aviemore, and the weather was fantastic, so it couldn't have gone better. So,
well, I'm so pleased.
Well, the big question is, was that algorithms which caused it? Was it some kind of cosmic influence?
Was it something woo-woo?
Was it something woo-woo? I don't know, but it really did work, and
I think the theme for all of us is, for the moments of the week seems to be journeys, Gemma.
Yeah, so a slightly different journey of a postcard from Sweden about 100 years ago. So I'm waiting for CJ to write her book around Éileann mac Aquitaine because I love history and I'm fascinated, and I wish I was on that trip now. But I, a couple of years ago, got really bored one night and decided to sign up to one of these kind of family tree websites and start to map out my family tree, because I don't know a lot about them. Unfortunately, lost my mum 15 years ago, and there was only so much I could get out of her. And whenever you try and get things out of your parents, it's a bit patchy because it's remembered through their eyes, and then there's another truth. So anyway, I got quite far my mum's dad's side. I got quite far on my dad's side, but there was parts of the family tree missing. So I randomly get this message from somebody on this platform. So I go into it and they're saying, this might sound a little bit strange, but however, stay with me. I run one of these Facebook sites, and we have postcards that have been lost in the post, and we try and reunite them with the families or ancestors of the families. And we have a postcard to Euphan Crichton from 1912 or something, or 1905, something like that, which was sent to this address in Edinburgh from Sweden, and we believe you are her ancestor. So I'm like, wow, this is a bit strange. Because my mum always talked about a great aunt Euphan, but my mum always talked about a lot of stuff that I didn't pay attention to. So long story short, she says, this is a free service, I'm not asking you for the money. Go on, check the research that we've done. It's all on this link, have a look through it. So I went on and I read through all this research, and it was absolutely fascinating. And this research was the stuff that I couldn't find, and it connected dots for me that I didn't know. Because I got back to my mother's grandmother, and I knew my great-grandmother, and I knew my grandfather had been born in India, but I didn't know the journey, or I didn't know where she had ended up, and it connected it all down. And the last comment was, I think I found her ancestor, I'm going to message her to see if she wants this postcard. So long story short,
you're being reunited with it.
Reunited. I don't know who lived in Sweden, but
you're going to find out.
I'm going to find out, and I'm going to give it to my uncle, because that was obviously...
Isn't it a fascinating journey that we go on with our ancestry? I've done something similar, and actually my moment of the week was that 24 hours ago I was in Vietnam. So I discovered through a similar
You're looking
site,
very fresh for it, by
thank
the way.
you, lots of coffee. But I discovered that I am just less than 1% Vietnamese, and had gone out to sort of do a travel piece and explore some of that. So, I find it fascinating piecing together actually who are we. I think it's one of the great journeys that we go on in life, is to try and discover who we are and make that connection. So yeah, I'm interested to find out if I've got any more Vietnamese relatives out there. Thank you all very much for your moments of the week.
Discussing.
It's been a big week on the international stage with the NATO summit taking place in The Hague, and everyone there was hoping to stay in the good books of US President Donald Trump.
They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. They fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes, then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while you have to use a certain word.
Now, a notable moment from the NATO summit there with Mark Rutte calling Trump daddy. The alliance reaffirmed their ironclad commitment to mutual defence, and a number of countries, including the UK, increased their pledges for defence spending, something the president has long called for. This focus on Donald Trump at NATO came just days after he approved missile strikes on Iran's nuclear programme, and later oversaw the announcement of a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Trump has now vowed to end the ongoing conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine. So, how has the self-styled American first president fared when taking on the issues of the world stage? Brian, Trump's been centre stage, obviously, again this week. It's hard to see a week where he doesn't manage to command that. What do you make of him at the NATO conference?
I thought he was. I thought he was fairly dignified. I thought he was relatively calm. He seemed happy and smiling. But then, of course, he would, because the entire structure of the conference was set up to accommodate his short attention span, to make it as brief as possible, to give him the nicest...
Well, because the schedule changed, didn't it?
The schedule,
the time.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, I think it was over 2 days, and it ended up being around about half a day, and all to suit Trump. So he was given a lovely bed for the night in the Royal Palace and everything that goes with that. And why would he not be smiling? Because everybody capitulated to the point that he was described as Big Daddy. He's seen as the father or the godfather of the universe now. And isn't that playing to his ego quite wonderfully? So, yeah, he would be very happy and controlled. The big issue with Donald Trump, of course, is that he may have agreed to that. He might be happy with the 5% in spending in GDP from each of the NATO countries, except, of course, Spain. He might be happy with that. But then, of course, in a couple of days' time, he could change his mind. So we don't really know. I think what it was all about was trying to keep him on side for the duration of his presidency. That's what it's all about. It's about pragmatism. It's about trying to work with the man rather than to alienate him and face the huge consequences thereafter.
It's interesting, CJ. I mean, Brian's saying there that essentially everyone was playing the game, the game that Trump wants them to play, which was a sort of pandering, I guess, to what he wanted and what his needs were, essentially stroking his ego. But, you know, Keir Starmer announced an increased defence budget target. So, you know, what's your reaction to that? Is it pandering, or is there a little bit more to it?
The Starmer's announcement of an increased defence budget target, I think, is the right call on paper. I don't really see, you know, how else he can react to this. You know, it just he hasn't explained how we're going to pay for it.
What are your thoughts, Gemma?
I don't think Starmer had much option. I think that it's a calculated move. It makes sure that UK stays close to the centre of NATO, and in a world where we are living in Trump's world, leverages everything. So it keeps us where we need to be. I agree with Brian that this is short-termism. The NATO summit was entirely set up to manage Trump, not to engage him, but to manage him. And it's a bit concerning, a bit worrying, because does it set a precedent? Does it put people over values? Perhaps so. Does it say to others, you could act in this way? It perhaps does, but you've got to remember that Trump comes with not just him. He comes with leverage, and that leverage is the resource and the power and the might of what is the USA. And we've got to be, whether or not we think it's right, whether or not it sticks in our throat the way in which he acts and behaves, that is by the by when it comes to these types of situations, because he has the power to back it up. So I think Keir Starmer's got to play it's a tight rope that he is walking here. He can't say yes, he can't say no. He can't say a lot. He just has to kind of edge along slowly. The challenge, which will be, and we'll come to it, is how do we pay for that increase of 1.5% of the GDP? We don't know yet is the answer, but the reality is that our defences are at a point where if we don't spend on it, we are vulnerable.
Well, in recent years, we've obviously seen defence spending cut quite considerably. Resources have been cut, spending has been cut. Given, Brian, the kind of the ongoing conflicts globally and the increased hostilities, do you see this being the right move for the UK?
I don't know if there's an alternative at this moment in time. And I think there's a bit of sleight of hand going on as well, because it's not exactly 5% of GDP to be spent totally on defence spending, because that involves infrastructure, intelligence and cybersecurity, which we were headed towards anyway. Because what we do realise that the threat these days isn't all about bombs, and it's not about nuclear attacks. It's about what can happen to our infrastructure. It's about how a foreign government can suddenly decide to wreak havoc on all our lives by cutting off supplies, communications, situations with hospitals, for example. We've seen little bits of it in the last couple of years in our airports, and really precarious situations developing here. So Keir Starmer's had to go along that way, but the number overall, the cost overall, will be something like 30 billion. And as Gemma mentioned, where are we going to pay for that? Well, we know where we're going to pay for that because there's already been leaks dropped about that. Income tax will increase towards the end of the year. So that's going to be the result of all of that. So is it a good thing? No, but is it an inevitable? Probably yes.
Well, I know that my colleagues in news will be looking at this very closely, and I'm sure we'll be bringing updates throughout the course of the day and, of course, the rest of the weekend and into next week. But let's leave it there for now. Coming up, is Scotland split between those who can afford private healthcare and those who have to wait for the NHS? We'll be exploring a bumpy week for the Prime Minister, plus a look at a documentary about the largest gathering of people on the planet.